Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. We had a little technical difficulties, so we're a few minutes late. Apologies for that. It's been a very busy news week, and we have a lot to talk about. So if you want, but at any point in time, if you want to call in, it is 435-900-8595. We'll keep the number up the whole time. Mr. Producer is here today, so we can take live calls. So let's start. The first one is so President Trump really wants to get the Save America Act passed, but I feel like he's being given really bad advice about strategy on this. And so last week, first of all, we talked before about the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. This is a bill that was passed overwhelmingly by the House and Senate. It was "quote unquote" bipartisan, and it's a bad bill. It's essentially a socialist housing bill. It does things like incentivizes Section 8 housing into red areas, so suburban and rural areas. It sets up a system meant to override local zoning rules and specifically to destroy single-family zoning. So they're coming after the suburbs really hard. Of course, the Republicans fully supported this because if we know one thing about Republicans, it's that they do not actually represent their voters. They represent their moneyed interests, and those interests generally do not align with their voters' interests. So, of course, they supported it. Now, what was interesting is Trump came out last week and said, "I will not sign the bipartisan housing bill." But then he didn't say whether he would veto it. And he actually should have vetoed this bill. It was a bad bill. It's socialism. So if you're going to be screaming and shouting about communism, you cannot make your alternative socialism, because communism will win that because they'll actually give you free stuff, versus socialism where they just give their donors free stuff and they screw you over. So then after President Trump made this announcement, Mike Lee came out, or maybe I should say based Mike Lee came out, and he said, "President Trump shares frustration with the American people that Congress is not delivering on their most important priorities." That's an understatement. "Including securing elections by requiring proof of citizenship to vote. The sooner we pass the Save America Act, the sooner President Trump will return to celebratory signing ceremonies for other legislation." So what Mike Lee said is that President Trump's not going to sign it, but he's going to let it go into law. And that's not a negotiating position. No one is going to change their mind on making sure you pass the Save America Act because you didn't do a celebratory signing ceremony for the bill that they really wanted. So maybe Mike Lee is also bad at negotiating, but this doesn't cut it. This will never work. If this is what Mike Lee wants to push as being based, he needs to take the based out of his name, because this is not based. It doesn't accomplish anything, because Senator Thune is going to be like, "I don't have a stupid signing ceremony. We wanted the bill into law, and you let it go into effect. So we accomplished our goal. You did not accomplish yours." So then I'll show you a couple of things from the bill just to remind people what it's about. And before I show you this, just keep in mind that most of everybody let me see how to put this. There's been a real effort to convince everybody that housing is expensive because we don't build enough units. I think that's false. I actually think housing right now, we have an excess supply, even on the markets. Like, housing is not really moving as it should. And so if you look, we have like historic supply on the market, but it's priced too high for people to afford it. And the reason why it's priced too high is because the federal government is fully involved in every aspect of the housing market. and they have set a floor under housing prices. So when you go out there and you see how high housing prices are, you'll notice they don't really seem to be coming down. And a lot of that is because the government is not allowing prices to come down. Just as an example, I had a friend who lost her job. This was under Biden, and they had a program for mortgage forbearance because she couldn't afford to pay her mortgage during that time she was unemployed. And it lasted for, I want to say it was like a year-long forbearance program. And what it does is it tacks on those extra payments at the end of the mortgage and extends your mortgage out. And I think that some of what the balance you built up is added back into your mortgage principal. And so think of, a lot of people were able to do that. And that means that instead of selling their homes when they lose a job or renting it out, they're actually staying in their homes longer. And that's the way, again, that you set a floor under the market. Plus, remember, the government controls the mortgages, and they do that through mortgage-backed securities and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And then you've got FHA loans that they give to everybody with very few requirements. And so the federal government is involved in the market. Like every market where the federal government is involved, the prices go up, they're higher. The reason why the medical industry or healthcare is so expensive is because of the federal government. That's all it is. The reason why colleges are expensive is because of the federal government. The reason why housing is expensive is because of the federal government. Anytime you get the government involved in something, the prices will go up, because what happens is the people pricing their product are now trying to absorb all the government money that's out there. And that's all that's happening here. So if you look at the bill, I think Chip Roy actually did a good job of summarizing a lot of the bad things in it. So he talks about Section 207. This is Representative Rashida Tlaib. So a lot of conservatives don't like her because she's a left-wing lunatic. And here she's got a section in this housing bill for $200 million for an affordable housing pilot program to incentivize dense, subsidized, affordable housing units. Section 101 reforms housing counseling agencies to provide rental dispute services to bad tenants facing lawful eviction. Why is the government involved in trying to help tenants who don't pay or are difficult to stay in their homes? They're actually hurting because those people probably aren't paying taxes. These difficult tenants, I've represented some in the past. It's going to be your taxpayers that now you are using government subsidies to go and fight against. Section 106, it has an eviction helpline program. Why do we have an eviction helpline program being funded by the government? I don't understand. A 3-year authorization of the controversial Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Program. This program is controversial because its disbursement has been seriously flawed in the past. Payments have taken years to be made, and the allocations have overwhelmingly gone to dense metro areas, ignoring rural communities. It should be scrapped entirely, and disaster repair payments should only be done by FEMA. Indefinitely reauthorizes the home grant program and significantly expands the criteria for eligibility. This is the federal government giving people money to fix up their homes. The problem with this is it allows them to choose who they want to give the money to. And typically it's not going to be middle-class people. It's people with connections, or it'll be people that are poor. And that's not fair, again, to the people who don't get it. And then you can just go down this list. It's all stuff like this. I thought this was interesting. It does nothing to limit foreign ownership. I do think this is an issue. I don't think that if you're, honestly, unless you're a citizen or a permanent legal resident, right? So a green card holder, you should not be allowed to buy homes in America. This bill continues to allow them to do that. And there was another part where, the RAD program. This is authorizes the rental assisted demonstration program and increases the cap to 100,000 units. This program is terrible as it provides vouchers for localities to raise money to convert units into long-term Section 8 housing. Again, we're paying for this. This is a bad bill. Oh, sorry, one more. It does nothing to make sanctuary jurisdictions ineligible for housing grant funding. Again, if you're trying to get rid of illegal aliens, you would have made it so sanctuary jurisdictions don't get money, or codify Trump's mixed status rule, which prohibits the prorating of housing welfare benefits to households with illegal or ineligible alien residents. So Trump did a rule to limit these benefits, but the next president that comes in will reverse it, especially if it's a Democrat, and it's gone. So they didn't codify it. Now, I blame Trump for this, though, because he doesn't ask for these things. For whatever reason, I don't understand it. I feel like Trump does not go in and ask for things to be made permanent so that his legacy will live on. Right now, the way this is set up is the vast majority of the things he accomplishes during this term will be reversed as soon as a Democrat wins. So he should have actually vetoed that bill anyway. But here, to make a threat that you're not going to sign it, but you're going to let it go into law, is an empty threat. It's just like virtue signaling. It was stupid. And I don't understand what the point of that was. I don't think the Save America Act is going to get passed. You know, I'll be happy if someone can get it passed and prove me wrong. But I'll just tell you, I don't think it gets passed. I don't think Mike Lee has a real strategy to do it. And I don't think the Republican senators actually want to pass it. So that's my theory. I will say it's been a tough weekend for the gay community. So first you had this, there's this cruise line. It's a gay cruise. Hold on, let me show you this. So there's a gay cruise going around the Mediterranean and trying to dock in different countries. And every single country keeps rejecting it. And I don't know why I'm getting such a kick out of this. Let me show you this video. It's kind of funny.
As a gay man, it's really hard to hear. I know that this kind of prejudice is not new to these kind of countries. And obviously, I don't want to go anywhere that shares those kind of views. But you just can't help but feel that with this current administration, people around the world feel more emboldened to do these kinds of things. And it's just really awful. I would like to hope that the world is moving forward, but just kind of feels like we're moving backwards. But we will still be having a fabulous gay time wherever we are. Trust and believe. As a gay...
Okay, so this ship, it's a gay cruise, and so it's mostly gay men. I think there is also billed as for non-binaries. I don't know why I don't know why a non-binary is on the cruise, but whatever. They got rejected from Turkey and they got rejected from Egypt, both of which are Muslim majority countries and don't and actually have laws against homosexuality. So what's kind of interesting about it, though, is I have a friend who's on a cruise. He's gay on a different cruise, like a normal cruise, or non-gay cruise, whatever you want to call it. And they're behind this cruise line, and they've hit all the spots that these guys say they're not able to go to. And and actually, I've been to Egypt. I went with an ex to Egypt once. So you can go on these trips if you're gay, and you can go to these countries. They just don't want you to come in there with a big party ship and to be kind of flaunting the gay lifestyle because they're conservative Muslim countries. And I think there's a lesson here. It's kind of interesting, but it shows you that like there are these cultural differences, and sometimes people don't understand that. Like you're not going to go in and change Turkey or Egypt. If you're on, like, so if you want to go see it and you're gay, you got to go in a more subtle manner where you're not flaunting being gay and doing what stereotypical gay things would be. So then on top of that, I think was a Saturday night, maybe one of the most prominent elected gay men in America died. That would be Lindsey Graham. So Lindsey, it's an open secret that Lindsey Graham is gay or was gay. And the fact that people are acting like it's not true is bizarre to me, But I thought this was interesting. There are now, and it's not only that he's gay, it's that he would hire prostitutes and by the way, both sexes. Someone told me a story once that Lindsey Graham was in DC and had hired female prostitutes and was out with them because he was trying to start rumors that he is heterosexual, which is not true. But he also was hiring gay prostitutes. And look, the reason why I'm bringing this up is I think this is the problem with allowing people who are gay to be in public office and to be closeted and to not disclose it. So I thought this was interesting. This guy, Jesse James Rose, he's transitioning into something. But he said, he wrote this and put it up, but he said, just woke up to find out Lindsey Graham is dead. They said, LOL. Most of you know him as a homophobic senator from South Carolina. But to me, he will always be the man who paid a Twinkie pre-transition college student a fat cache of money to do unspeakable things to him in a hotel room while he wore red lingerie. Let's see. Oh, and then he said, this guy says, it was an absolute, it's absolutely crazy to me that one of the reasons I have any semblance of financial security is because of this man. At the time, I had no idea who he was, and I only figured it out because another group of twinks leaked Lady G to the media. Some queers tried to grandstand critique this, saying we shouldn't out people. I believe bigots with power deserve no peace or privacy, especially when they hold public office. I'm glad they did it. Icons forever. Now, I see it a little differently, and I see it this way. If you're going to run for office and you are gay, you need to be honest about it because of the potential for blackmail. And also, I think that whole like living in the shadows thing, it just encourages really bad behavior, especially if you're going to go to DC. DC has all sorts of debauchery going on. We kind of learned about that with the Eric Swalwell situation. So just imagine how much worse that gets for someone who's closeted. And so instead of just being a regular gay guy, going on dates with men, whatever, having a boyfriend, he turned to this kind of very debaucherous lifestyle, which I don't think is a good thing anyway. So anyway, I think this is interesting because now some of these people are coming out. The argument is, I guess some of the people that he had done things with had NDAs, and the NDAs are no longer in effect because he's dead. So we may hear more about this, but I think he kind of points to the problems with not being honest about your sexuality if you're going to run for public office. This is what I keep talking about in Utah. I know of at least 3 gays and or lesbians. Although I say gay, it's kind of the same thing, both. But they are in public office and they're not honest about it. And so I think they should be. That's been my argument, is I actually don't think you should be secretive about it. I think you should be honest about it because it is now you have to keep the secret, and it's something that people can blackmail you about. And I don't think other people are required to keep the secret for you, right? Like you should have been honest about it from the beginning anyway, and you're not. And nobody else has an obligation to keep your secret for you. And since there really isn't anything that there's no legal negative ramifications to being gay, why should I have to keep it a secret? Why should anyone have to keep it a secret? So that's kind of like, that was part of what I thought was interesting in this. And that's been kind of what I've been talking about with like Celeste, for example, right? If you kind of look at her, she's got the vibe of a lesbian, the kind of 45, never been married, no kids, very overweight, and horrible fashion sense, and god ugly shoes. Those are all things that are designed to attract a lesbian. So, you can take it for what it's worth. You can think it's not, or you can think it is, but I'm not required to not talk about things that I am observing and I think are true. So, and actually she's a good example of the corruption I'm talking about. So if you look here, in May of 2023, Celeste won the special election to become the next congresswoman from CD2, and she replaced Chris Stewart for that seat. And then in July of 2024, her sister, Lucia Malloy, was named the general counsel of Southern Utah University. She, at the time that she got this job, she had graduated from law school in April of 2015. So she had been a lawyer for less than 10 years, and she was named the general counsel of one of Utah's big universities. Now, before this, I think her only other job, she worked at SUU for 5 years. And then I think before this, she was at the Attorney General's office. So really very little experience to be a general counsel of a university. Now, with the promotion, her comp package jumped from $172,000 to $224,000 a year. So she got an increase of $52,000. Her salary itself, because comp package would include benefits, and the government employees in Utah actually get pretty generous benefits. Her salary jumped $41,000 a year, or 32%. And so you can kind of see like the corruption piece here, right? She wins Congress. Suddenly her sister becomes general counsel of SUU. I don't know her other siblings' names, but I'd be interested to look and see which of the other ones also got benefits. I'm also a little bit curious, and I have to think about how to go about this, but to see if there are any discussions between Lucia and Celeste about this position as it came up, and then to see if there were any discussions between Celeste and anyone at SUU about her sister applying and getting appointed, or do they do this stuff more kind of quietly? I don't know how this works because I'm not corrupt, so I kind of, we have to think like the corrupt people to be able to figure out what they did. Now, on top of that, she also, Celeste, she takes her sister on trips with her. So here's an example, and not like ones that they're paying for, because I mean, if you go on vacation with someone, you pay for it. I don't care. Have fun. That's your right. But here's what there was a lobbying group that paid for a trip for Celeste and her sister to go to Greece for a week. So they got $15,000 in free benefits from a lobbying group. And you know that there's always a price to pay for this. You're not getting free stuff from a lobbyist because they're not expecting something in return. So they probably, I don't know what the vote is that she gave them back. I mean, honestly, Celeste is pretty much, she does what her donors want. And but it's also weird to have people taking their sisters on these types of trips, right? Now, honestly, I mean, Celeste doesn't have a significant other that anybody knows about or any children, so maybe that's why that happened. But even so, I just don't know about this taking your extended family members. I don't know about having other people pay for your vacations, especially when you're voting on issues in Congress. All of this just strikes me as corrupt. And I think if she's a lesbian, some of this is linked to that, right? Because people like this can also blackmail her because if she's a lesbian, she doesn't want you to know about it. Because at this point, if she were to ever come out, people are going to say, wait, you lied about this since 23. Like, you should have been honest from the beginning. You've just been lying to us. What else are you lying about? That's what's going to come up. So she's never, ever, ever going to want it disclosed. That's the issue that Lindsey Graham had. He never wanted it disclosed that he was gay, because then people would ask him, how many things have you been lying to us about? You lied about this. It wasn't that you were just a single swinging bachelor. It was that you were gay. A little different. Okay. So then I want to talk a little bit about Lindsey Graham's, his legacy, Lady Graham's legacy. So a lot of people, I see this every single time a politician dies, we suddenly get them lionized in the media, and it's all just stuff that's not even true about them. And I don't understand what that's about. If someone was a bad senator or a bad representative, I don't want you to turn around then and tell me how great they were and lie to me, because I'm not, it's like you're peeing on my leg and telling me it's raining. Like, no, he was not a good senator. I think it's great that he is no longer in the Senate. I'm not going to wish, bad things on because he's dead, but like, it is a good thing that Lindsey Graham is no longer in the Senate. He was bad. He did lots of bad things over his very long career. So when he first ran, I think he ran in 2003. when Strom Thurmond died, he actually said he was going to only do 2 terms. And now he's out. I don't even know how it's 2026. So whatever, however many terms that was, because maybe Thurmond died in the middle of his term. So however many, you've got like 23 years in the Senate. And let me give you some examples. So he supported the 2003 Iraq War, which was sold on a total lie about weapons of mass destruction. Do you remember that? I remember that because I knew it was a lie at the time. I talked to my dad, and I remember we were talking, and we were just like, I don't understand how they have weapons of mass destruction. They've been under sanctions for like 10 years. How are they creating weapons? So that was sold on a lie and with some weird link to the Al-Qaeda or whatever it was. Then there's the COVID vaccine, and these are just some select picks. You know, he was a piece of work. So let me play you this.
Good to be back. Thank you for the inquiries about my well-being to all my colleagues. I appreciate the good wishes and the phone calls and the food, and I made it. I think the worst is behind me. I want to reinforce a simple message. If you haven't been vaccinated regarding the COVID problem, you need to get vaccinated. I've been vaccinated, and I got COVID anyway. A couple of really bad days, but I'm doing better, and I feel on the mend, and I'm confident if I hadn't had the vaccine, it'd have been a lot worse. So in my state, about 50% of the people are still unvaccinated. Just for your own good and the good of our state, I would urge you to consider getting vaccinated. I think the vaccine is safe, and it works, and it certainly, I'm glad I had it, and the sooner we can get to herd immunity through vaccinations and other means, the better off we'll be. So to all my colleagues and people back home, thank you for the kind words and the inquiry.
Mr. Producer says, if you got vaccinated and you got sick, it's not a vaccination. Accurate. I mean, that's like the humorous part, right? He's like, oh, I got vaccinated, but I still got COVID. It would have been worse without it. All right, there's no way to even prove that. I don't even think it's true. But what's interesting here, right, is that he's pushing whatever the latest propaganda was at that time. You had to get the vaccine. Go get vaccinated. Well, it didn't work for you. Why would I go get vaccinated? Oh, the vaccine is safe and effective. But now I'm being told this guy is MAGA, which is also weird. I will say, there's some interesting conspiracy theories out there about how, like he might have gotten vaporized in a drone strike in Ukraine, which if true would be a fitting end for him because he loved war. And but if it wasn't that, it could have just been a side effect of the COVID vaccine, right? It causes heart problems in a lot of people and all sorts of side effects. So if he was one of the promoters of it and he died because of it, again, seems kind of fitting. Now, here's how he talked about, there's another possibility too, I'll tell you, is that, he may have been using drugs to have sex with prostitutes. That's a possibility because it seems like there's a lot of stories about that out there. Here's how he talked about January 6th people. Let me see, hold on. This is the Trump one. And I want you to see this because it's just it's so offensive. And now I have people telling me that he's MAGA. Here.
Yeah, my question is about January 6th.
It wasn't peaceful. I was there. If it had been up to me, I would have shot some of these people in the head. Let me tell you why. They took over your capital. I don't care what the cause was. They destroyed the place.
Yeah, my question.
Okay, so if you actually understand January 6th, it was an op. The police actually opened the doors. They let in tons of people, and a lot of people were forced into the building because of the crushing crowds. On the one side of the building, they tossed munitions into the crowd to get them riled up. It was very purposeful. The entire thing was purposeful. It was done to get people riled up and to set up an op to get Trump out of office. But this guy, and by the way, a lot of them were like, it was like people's grandmothers who got pushed through the Capitol. So he's talking about he has to shoot them in the head. Like, and I guess now, are we supposed to be okay with that because he's dead? Or are we allowed to remember him for the douchebag that he was? Pardon my French. Now here's Trump talking about it. And this made me upset because I'm kind of like, if you're Trump, I guess you want to go and forgive these people. I don't. I want to remember and I want them out of office. Now, in this case, he had to die to get out of office, which seems to be the latest thing in DC. But I don't want to forget. I don't think we should forget. I think we should actually, when someone tells you who they are, remember it and hold them accountable.
Now, he had one bad moment, and that was, in the January 6th thing when he stood up. All right, now I've had it. That's it. I can't do it anymore. And then he called me like about 40 minutes later, and he said, did I really say that? I can't believe it. And he took it back. So I give him a 99 instead of a 100. A lot of people were at 100. But he did have that one little moment, and it was sort of funny when he goes, did you see it, by the way? I've had it. Now I've had it. He was just, I was too much for him. He said, this is it. I've had it.
So Trump thinks it's funny when thousands of people had their lives destroyed because of January 6th and the abuse of government power that happened at the behest of people like Lindsey Graham. I'm not moving on from that. I don't forgive people for that. We haven't actually gotten the accountability we need for what happened at all. It could happen all over again. And I think that's actually a big failing of this administration is there has not been accountability for all of the legal abuses that happened under the previous administration. So they let in 20 to 25 million illegal aliens. Not one person has been prosecuted for opening our borders and letting those people in. They sicked it's like a quarter of the FBI was focused on hunting down people that were at the Capitol on January 6th to destroy their lives. Those people are still working at the FBI or they're still working at the Capitol Police. Nothing has changed. And so I look at this and I think to myself, nothing has changed. And our president thinks it's funny, because he wants to eulogize Lindsey Graham. I would just be like, yeah, okay, he's dead. Prayers to his family. Let's move on. Okay, here's another one. Here's so if you would like to see less immigration into the country, or let's say you voted for mass deportations, here's Maria Salazar, a amnesty shill out of Florida. And she says, few people in Washington fought longer or harder to fix our broken immigration system than Lindsey Graham. From the 2013 immigration reform effort to Dignity, her bill, he was there. He knew how hard this fight was, and he knew why it was worth continuing. When we began building the Dignity Plan, Lindsey joined those early conversations. He listened, he shared what he'd learned, and he pushed us to keep going to find a real solution. The solution is mass deportation, sweetheart. I will always be grateful for his counsel in the years he gave to this fight. Rest in peace, Lindsey. You will be missed. So do you guys want to all just forget about the fact that he was pushing amnesty, which would totally destroy the country because there are 40 to 50 million illegals in our nation right now. If you were to give them all amnesty, allow them to become citizens instead of deporting them, Republicans will never win an election again nationally, and they will very rapidly win in a lot fewer states than they do now. So on top of amnesty, so that's like the exact opposite of what Trump ran on. You also have his constant warmongering. So let me show you that. Let's see what we got for. Oh, I have the wrong. It says, oh, hold on. I don't think I copied it. Okay. Aha. Okay. Here we go.
I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast to our friends in Saudi Arabia and other places, step forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America. I'm publicly involved in bringing this regime down. If you don't, you're making a great mistake, and you're going to cut off the ability to have a better relationship with the United States. I say this as a friend. They want to bomb because they're Nazis, they're crazy. They want to kill all the Jews, and the Jews have been down that road before. To our friends in Israel, God bless you. I'm with you in every way. To all the anti-Semitites, to all the isolationists, I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. God bless Israel. All right. We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
That's a little bit of a weird interview, but the part I thought was weird is telling people he wants to send all their kids to the Middle East to fight. He never had kids. He wanted to send your kids to go and fight a war overseas. This guy is a psycho. I mean, all he was doing his entire career was pushing war, pushing amnesty. These are all things that are not MAGA. They're not America first. They're not meant to prioritize our nation and its people. Sending Americans overseas to go and fight constantly, that doesn't help America at all. I mean, that's why we voted for Trump. And instead, and this is where I'm very disappointed, we got a war of choice in Iran that I don't know. I mean, maybe it's coming to an end. I have no idea, but I feel like I don't understand why we started it in the first place. And I know part of it is the justification was that they were on the verge of getting nuclear weapons, but there's video going back to the 90s of Prime Minister Netanyahu actually saying that they were months away from getting a bomb. So I don't know what changed between 1990 or whatever and the modern day that made Trump think we needed to go in now. I will say that, now that Lindsey's gone, and, like I said, it's unfortunate that the only way we get a vacancy in the Senate is when someone dies. But now that he's gone, they have a real opportunity to actually put someone who's conservative into that seat. Unfortunately, I think Trump is going to probably end up endorsing a rhino because that's what he does. And then, there's some portion of the Republican Party that does zero due diligence and just votes based on what Trump tells them. So we will end up probably with a rhino, probably a neocon warmonger filling that seat, and the policies will not change. And then you'll have Republican voters acting like they have no idea why the country is in such in bad shape and heading in the wrong direction. I will say I did see that Trump actually appointed Lindsey Graham, or Trump pushed and promoted having Lindsey Graham's sister finish his term, which I think is just wild and crazy. It's actually something you would see in India. It's like third world politics. Oh yeah, this guy died. Let's put his wife in. Let's put his daughter in. Oh, sympathy, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's not even in politics. Nobody has any idea what she stands for. There's no record to go on. So now you just put her in there as some sop to her brother. She's gotten plenty of benefits already. Why are we trying to help her? And I know the big thing was, I saw this today, like his parents died when he was 21, within months of each other, and his sister was 10 at the time. So they're making this, oh, you know so much about him because he adopted his sister and took care of her. And I'm like, that's your sister. I would hope that you would take care of her. You're an adult. They're calling him an orphan. I'm like, he was 21. If your parents die when you're an adult, you're not an orphan. You're an adult. Your parents will die at some point, right? That's part of life. Like, we don't live forever. And then taking care of your own sibling, that seems like kind of a standard practice. Like, if that happened when my sister and I were young and she was a minor and I wasn't, I would certainly have taken her in. Like, what else do you do at that point? It just doesn't mean any sense. It's so weird. Mr. Producer says, I must be an orphan. Who knew? Right, exactly. It makes no sense. Like, if you're an adult and your parents die, you're not an orphan. That is normal life. That's what happens. If you're a minor, I can see the argument you're an orphan. But again, if you have an adult sibling, they should obviously take care of you. That's called family obligation. It doesn't show anything deep and meaningful about you. It just shows that you're a normal family, I think. Now, so we'll see what happens there, though, because I know I've seen there, different people are kind of raising their potential hands on this. There was a guy who ran and was like second place, and he's thinking about running. You have Nancy Mace, who's crazy, but also like she'll go on the conservative stuff on some stuff side on some stuff. And then I'm sure it'll be mostly rhinos though. So next, I want to talk about based Mike Lee. So, and this goes to my point about like what should you believe about elected officials? Should you believe the hype that they're putting online, or should you be looking at their record and understanding what that politician actually stands for, and then and not let that waver, right, over time? Caroline teaches math says Nancy Mace is clownish. I agree. She totally is clownish. But I also feel like we are in clownish times. So maybe, if the country is going to crumble anyway, we could at least get some entertainment out of it. So there's like, the more and more I look at this, the more I feel like there's really no turning this around. It's just going to be constant decline because the Republican Party wants to sell socialism, and their socialism benefits their donors. And then they're labeling the Democrats as selling communism. But then I was reading yesterday that Zoran Mamdani, he actually does some stuff that is good for the people. Like the people there seem to like him, because I don't think that he's as captured by his donors. Here, I'll show you this example of what I'm talking about, because I saw this and I was like, oh, this is actually a really good issue. Here, click to cancel. So Zoran Mamdani announces click to cancel rule for New York City. The rule is aimed at guaranteeing New Yorkers can cancel subscriptions as easily as they sign up and stopping corporations from trapping customers. This will save New Yorkers up to $162.5 million per year. And so think about this. I've signed up for stuff and found it really difficult to be able to cancel like a subscription. And this guy that I'm thinking, he says he's a socialist, maybe he's a communist. I don't even know at this point. It seems all the same. But here he is doing things that people actually want and will benefit them. And the Republicans never do this stuff. They benefit their donors. So speaking of which, let's talk about base Mike Lee. So I was looking at, a big issue right now is the H-1B visa issue. And I've talked about this program before. It's a program that allows employers to import workers from overseas. There is currently a cap on the percentage of people that can come from a specific country. And this has an impact on India. And so I think India represents about 70% of the H-1B people that come in to the country every year. And they've been wanting that cap to be removed so that they could have, all of them could be Indian, right? And so the H-1B program, what it does is it allows these corporations to import foreign workers, right? And so if you work in, this is expanded all over the place, but it was supposed to be for the tech industry to fill skills that we allegedly didn't have. It makes no sense on any level whatsoever, because honestly, like American universities at least used to be a better quality than universities anywhere else in the world. So it doesn't make sense that we need to import people. And if you understand economics, what we should have been doing is saying, look, we'll let wages go up and then Americans will go into the field, right? That's how you handle this stuff. Instead, the government got involved. They allowed these employers to start importing workers. They can come in, I think, for 3 years, but then they can keep on extending that 3-year period until they eventually get a green card, which is all of their goals. That's what every H-1B person wants. That's not the only one of these programs, by the way. There's OPT, which is the optional practical training program. No cap on that. Every single foreign student that comes in can convert to that. It's 3 years again. Then they take that, they convert it to an H-1B, they stay forever. Under the OPT program, they actually don't even have to pay FICA taxes. So employers save 15% by hiring them. And so what this means is, like, if you have a child, your child goes to, let's say, the University of Utah or BYU, they get a mechanical engineering or a computer science degree. They want to go into a tech industry. they're competing against all the foreign students that they are also graduating with. But the difference is, even if the employer pays them the same as the foreign student, the employer saves 15% on the foreign student. And so your child is now having unfair competition, and that is what this is about. I think if you're a parent, this ought to be the top issue for you, is protecting your children's ability to get a job in the country that belongs to them. This is their birthright. And so they should be able to get a job in their own nation and not have to compete against foreigners to do so. Because you know what? We expect those same kids to join the military and to go and protect the nation if we need it, right? Every single male in the US is signing up for selective service. They want to expand that to women. I think they probably should. And so if you're going to have all these people signing up for the service, and then foreigners come here, they don't have to do any of that stuff, but they get all the benefits of living in America without any of the burdens. And so I feel like as a parent, this is an important issue. I'm not a parent. If you're a parent, it's important for you. Or if you care about the future and young people. I have 2 nephews. I do care about what happens to them. Will they be able to get a job one day? Or are they also going to be boxed out of the market because of foreigners getting special benefits over them? Okay, before we continue, you are watching KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, Rumble, YouTube, and on our website, kmmu.org. Like, share, and hit the notification bell. Call in and talk to us. Oh, the number is on the screen here. It's 435-900-8595. Thanks for listening to the Goud Crowd. So then the other piece is this. Indians are notoriously racist against white people and black people. Just FYI. So when they freshly come here, there's a lot of bigotry against Americans. And hold on. Is that you, Mr. Producer? I don't know if he knows he's on. Hello. Oh, okay. Well, you're on the screen. We're going to talk. Oh, okay. They disappeared. Okay. So anyway, and they discriminate. And then what they do is they specifically, when they're in these companies, they do discriminate against Americans. And then they hire more H-1Bs and bring them here. And they're bringing over family and friends. So that's what I think, that's kind of the backstory here. And so Mike Lee has been a big proponent of the H-1B visa. Well, I think it's a scam. And so in 2020, he pushed what's called the Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act. So let me pull up. This is actually a newspaper from India. It's called the Economic Times NRI. That means non-resident Indian. And so I'll show you some of what he said here. All right. So like I said, there is a cap on what percentage of those visas can be given to any single country. And so this bill would remove that cap, and it passed the Senate. And here's what Mike Lee said. Few ideas are more central to who we are as Americans than the notion that people should be judged based on their own merits as individuals and not on their race or nationality, Senator Mike Lee, author of the Senate legislation, said on Thursday. This legislation lives up to our founding principles by ending nationality discrimination in our nation's employment-based green card system. Is this really a founding principle? Does anybody think that it's a founding principle that we should not have nationality discrimination in our nation's employment-based green card system? It also contains much-needed reforms to our H-1B visa system. American families should always be our top priority, and this bill contains strong new protections for American workers. And I don't even know. I don't think it did, because honestly, if you're pushing the H-1B program, it doesn't matter what guardrails you put into place, because the program is an abuse. The entire program. It's a scam. It's an abuse. It's meant to hurt Americans. So I guess I don't know, does that sound conservative to anybody, or does that sound like somebody who cares about his constituents? So then this is kind of notable because in his first term, so sorry, a little bit here. So Mike Lee also led an effort in 2019. Hold on one second. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. So Mike Lee supports this bill. I don't find this to be conservative at all. And the explanation to it is actually really offensive if you understand the founding of America. The founders were not worried about bringing in temporary workers to fill needs, alleged needs. They were trying to create a nation based on enduring principles and to build it, right? They weren't looking to import the whole world like we do now. Now, according to Breitbart, the reason that Mike Lee supported this bill was because Utah's real estate industry wanted to attract more Indian companies to the state. Sources told Breitbart News that Utah's top political leadership forced Lee to support the bill because Utah's real estate industry wanted to attract more Indian companies to the state. And I guess I just think that's weird. First of all, he wasn't forced to support the bill. He supported the bill voluntarily because he supports the H-1B visa program. And I know in the last year, he's made some noise about wanting to limit it. But I actually don't think you can limit this program. You have to end it. It's an abusive program. It's an offensive program. Telling Americans that you're too dumb and that we're not producing the talent that these companies need is just utterly offensive, and it's incorrect. We have tons of people that go into these tech fields and then they cannot find jobs in American companies and they end up doing other types of jobs because of it. We are robbing American people of opportunities in our own companies, and we're allowing this to happen with a legal route. This is, in some ways, like the illegal immigration problem is bad. I mean, it's bad. And it has completely depressed wages for working class Americans and really destroyed our working class. This program and these types of programs and the OPT program and the student visa program, these are all aimed at destroying the middle class. So when he pushed this bill, Senator Lee told the Senate that the backlog for an Indian national to get permanent residency or a green card is more than 195 years. Okay, who cares? Why? I really don't give a crap if more Indians are not able to immigrate here. Okay, is that in our interest? Because if you for those of you who have been to India, it is a shithole. Okay, when Trump described it, he was accurate. It's full of discrimination, rampant discrimination, especially based on color and then based on caste, which people here wouldn't know about, but wouldn't know the details of. But now that there's so many Indians here, they're importing those same issues, right? So when I was a kid, I remember my grandmother used to say things like, "Oh, that girl is so pretty because she's fair-skinned." And I remember we used to be like, "What do you mean? We're dark-skinned. Are you saying that we're ugly?" But she was trained to think that way, right? If you're fair, you're beautiful, and if you're dark, you're ugly. And it was just kind of like but they bring that discrimination also goes into the workplaces in India, and they're bringing that same culture here. So my thing is like, I don't care if no Indian ever immigrates here ever in my entire lifetime, that's fine. What is my interest in that? I don't have any interest in constantly letting the entire world immigrate into the nation and make it so we don't have a common culture anymore. We have essentially like ethnic ghettos going up in every single state in the country because there are too many immigrants coming in and flooding it. See, like you can't have assimilation if you don't have the vast majority of people. It can't just be 50%. You're talking like 75, 80, 90%. The people have to be actual native-born Americans who are native to the culture. Otherwise, what you end up with are these ethnic ghettos where people hang out and they're not able to assimilate in any way. And now Indians are actually joining in on the ethnic ghetto thing. It's just weird because you go to places like California and they have neighborhoods where it's all Indian families. And I think it's weird. because I don't know how those kids are going to actually learn about American culture if all of their parents immigrated from India, right? It's just, I don't know, like, how do you make that leap? A lot of the cultural stuff is not a forced thing. It's kind of just, it happens by osmosis because you're hanging out with Americans, people whose parents were born and brought up here, grandparents, like they have much longer lineages in America. We were lucky because we grew up around people like that. Today, I don't know how kids are able to learn about American culture if the vast majority of the people around them are in the same situation they are, specifically that the parents immigrated and now they're the first generation of American-born kids. It doesn't make sense to me. Caroline teaches math, says, believe the hype, right? She says, I worked at a boarding school. The administrator brought in H-1Bs to teach the foreign languages. So that's crazy. We have Americans that speak like every language possible, especially in Utah, where, you know, all the LDS people go on missions and they learn foreign languages. That's actually a great skill to have, and they'd be perfect for jobs like that. Speaking of jobs, going to foreigners. So that's, anyway, I thought that's an interesting thing. Mike Lee has kind of changed his tune a little bit since 2025, but I think you need to ask yourself, like, is it a genuine change of tune or a genuine change of heart, or will he go back and revert to his old positions when Trump is gone? I worry that it's the latter, and because I want the H-1B program canceled and terminated. And I don't see it happening because I think, unfortunately, the Republican Party as a whole is just bought and paid for by big donors. And they all want foreign labor. I mean, they desperately want it. So when you have that, it's hard for me to think that Mike Lee's actually changed versus he's going to support it again in the future. Now, the next thing here is seasonal jobs. So I found this website, and this is interesting. It's called, it's the Department of Labor has a seasonal jobs page. So let me show this to you. And this actually, you can find all of these kind of jobs for the H-2A visa. So these are the temporary visas that people that are like farmers and ranchers and hotels, and you'll see, we'll go through some of these because I thought this was really interesting. So this is a sheep herder. This guy, Carl Lund, he's got a advertisement for it. He will pay you $2,058.31 a month to work for him. And let's see what you have to, so that is not a lot of money. Okay, like anyone who is living and has a home, this wouldn't even cover my mortgage payment. It says here, so job duties to be a sheep herder. You have to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and spend the majority of work days on the range. All job duties are closely and directly related to the production of sheep. Perform any combination of the following tasks to attend sheep on the range: administer emergency minor medical care to sick, injured, pregnant ewes, is that how you say it? I don't know how to say this, female sheeps. Using roping methods to gently immobilize animal without causing undue stress. Apply herbicides to noxious, invasive, and poisonous plant species. I mean, this just goes on and on, okay? And then if you go to the bottom, you have to have 6 months of experience to be a sheep herder. Now, I don't see anything here that they actually cannot train, right? With some training, you could teach someone to go and live with the sheep and attend to them on the range. They're trying to make this sound like it's rocket science. It is not. It's animal husbandry, and I think you could train people how to do it. But they want you to be available 24/7 for $2,058.31 a month. Now, if you call this guy and you ask him about the job, he'll tell you that Americans don't want to do it. And I will tell you, yeah, they don't want to do it because you're not paying enough. $2,058.31 a month is not a lot of money. 1 second here. Let me just send a quick message. Okay, let's see how much that is per hour. $2,058.31 divided by, how would you do, divided by 30. Oops, hold on. Divided by 30. Let's do that. That's $68 a day. And then if you do it 24 hours, that's $285 an hour. They're like, not, I mean, this is not enough. I'm sorry, but you have to pay more if you want people to do these types of jobs, and they should be forced to pay more. The whole point is, so you can have a free market for workers, but the only way to have that free market and have it actually operate properly is if you're not allowing immigration to undermine it. If we had a actual free market, closed borders, no immigrants coming in with this BS H-1B, H-2A, all these cheap labor programs, this guy would have to pay more to get people to do that job. Now, I bet you if you call him, and I know this because if you talk to Carson Jorgensen, he'll tell you there's not Americans who can do this job. You know, he's apparently a genius or something. But I know multiple ones in Utah who can do this job. They grew up ranching. They understand how to do it, and they could do this job. But guess what? They're not going to do it because you're not paying enough. And I had a friend tell me once that actually in the pioneer days, LDS people used to be sheep herders, and that's where they would learn about the Book of Mormon. So you're actually, it's kind of an interesting history, and now they've turned it into just a way to make money, and they don't care about their fellow Utahns. That's how I interpret this as being very anti-American if you support this. So then, and you know, the other thing is that person that he hires will make less than $25,000 a year. And so that means that person's probably gonna be on welfare. That's not enough to live in America. I don't even know how, I mean, I don't know why we allow this. The government should stop undermining American workers. That's what they're doing here. Now, here's another good one. There was one in here for picking tomatoes. Okay. And I honestly think this job sounds kind of fun. So here we go. Okay. So this one, it's the Utah Greenhouse Company in Mona, Utah. They'll pay you $12.48 an hour, and it's this is a hydroponic greenhouse facility where they're planting, cultivating, and harvesting tomatoes and greenhouse cleanout activities. Now, I once went to Fairview and I got a tour of one of these hydroponic greenhouses. It's really cool. The tomatoes are like, they look gnarly because they're like really massive, bigger than you'd ever see them in nature because they grow year round. It's perfectly climate controlled because they keep it at the same like temperature, the humidity, everything. It's like science. Very cool. And so here, this person could probably get an American to do this job. They could probably get a teenager to come and do it. And in fact, if you think about this, I just keep thinking about when I was a teenager, all the jobs I did and all the jobs my friends did, where you'd go, you'd work somewhere for a summer, you'd work during the year. I know, like I once for a summer, I worked at a pet shop and I had to wear like a Dalmatian costume and go outside and wave at people. It just happened at a Dalmatian at the time. It was kind of funny. And then I worked at an eyeglass store where I used to help make eyeglasses. That was actually pretty cool. And just a bunch of different jobs like that. Tutor for a while. I don't like just minimum wage jobs, palling around, you know, having a normal teenage life. Are kids even able to get jobs anymore? Or are we letting the foreigners take all the jobs from them so they're just sitting at home all summer doing nothing? Mr. Producer says you get a trailer to stay in as a shepherd so you can stay with the sheep. Yeah, no, you do. It's true. You're with them 24 hours. Okay, so for this job, you have to be able to, all of this is trainable, right? They can teach you how to propagate the plants. They can teach you how to plant them. They can teach you how to maintain the facility. They can teach you how to clean it out. Everything they can teach you. This is a very trainable job. We can take Americans off the street, put them through basic training, and train them how to operate a nuclear submarine. But then the sheep herders and the tomato farms and these guys, they want to tell you they can't train Americans to do these jobs. It's a joke. And I wish more Americans would push back on this because it's BS. So let's keep going because this is interesting. So for this one, and this is what I think is wild. You have to have 2 months of experience. He wants to pay $12.48 an hour. Okay, that's nothing today. And for that, you have to have 2 months of verifiable agriculture employment, preferably on a vegetable farm. Applicants must be able to furnish verifiable job references or comparable third-party documentation from recent employers establishing acceptable prior experience. Why do you need prior experience to pick tomatoes? This is not rocket science. Anybody can learn this. And so I don't understand what we're doing here. By the way, for the $12.48 an hour or whatever, they also want you to work on Saturdays. So it's not even like this is not good pay. I was looking at the McDonald's by my house. They're paying $12 to $18 an hour. So I just wonder, these guys, at least they're at the bottom end of this range, but really they could probably pay more. Tomatoes aren't really cheap. So I think this is interesting. Like, you need someone to have 2 months of experience. They can learn how to come and pick tomatoes. Okay. Here's another one. Hold on. I got another one for you. This one actually made me mad because this is a job that 100% should go to Americans. Hold on. I didn't do a good, I didn't understand how exactly to separate this out, but there's another one here that's really good. Structural steel workers. Okay. So hold on, let me get this one up. How do I, oh, here, okay. So here's this one. Okay, so the structural steel workers is a company in Delta. They want to pay $16.60 per hour. So on farms, they erect agricultural buildings for the dairy industry. Our work includes erecting light gauge steel framing and structural steel components, along with the installation of wall and roof systems such as metal panels, insulation, trim, doors, and related assemblies. Materials are delivered to the site and unloaded by our crews using telehandlers. When we arrive on site, the concrete foundations and slabs are already poured. We do not perform trenching, concrete placement, plumbing, or electrical work. Our crews use standard construction tools and equipment. Primary equipment includes telehandlers, boom lifts, and scissor lifts. Hand and power tools include drills, impact, all this stuff. So you have to have 1 year of experience to do this job. Why? That's my question. Why? And here, and you can see down here, $14.76 an hour for H2A workers. So they're going to offer $16.60, and I just told you McDonald's here will pay you $12 to $18 an hour. So at McDonald's, you get to be inside. So Mr. Producer says you can make $20 flipping hamburgers. The reason Americans won't do these jobs is the pay rate is horrible. That's right, exactly. You can be comfortable inside of a McDonald's, or you can go stand outside during the hot summer and build these barns or whatever on a dairy farm at $16.60 an hour. And they're doing this on purpose. They're paying this little on purpose because the actual goal of all of these listings is to be able to hire H2A workers. And the H2A workers make even less, $14.76 per hour. Why would you allow any construction company to import foreign workers? You can train people to do this, and you should be required to train Americans to do it and to pay them market wages, which is obviously higher than $16.60. And I will just note, so we went to Flaming Gorge a couple weeks ago. Beautiful. It's very beautiful up there. But we stayed at this campsite, and the campsite had foreign workers. I just couldn't believe it. Like, why are there foreigners in the middle of nowhere, Utah, when there's a town nearby? Manila is pretty close, and they could hire the locals from Manila to run it, and again, pay them market wages. But no one's going to do these jobs if you're not actually paying them what they're worth. So let's see, construction painter. Oh, okay, I have another one. There's a construction painter. This one, I was like, okay. Let's see. Give me 1 second, I'll find it. Here. Okay. Do you see that? So construction painter. $20.90 an hour. This one's actually in Saratoga Springs. So they need 3 people. So here, okay, they want to do, you have to perform interior and exterior painting for residential and commercial buildings, prepare services by scraping, sanding, patching, and cleaning, apply paint, stains, and coatings using brushes, rollers, and spray equipment, ensure proper coverage and finish quality, maintain tools, equipment, and work areas, follow safety procedures and job site instructions, work location, multiple work sites within Utah County, full-time, 40 hours per week, Monday through Friday. Okay, painting experience preferred. First of all, again, you can train people to paint. Most people have already painted. You probably painted in your house. I've done it. And then once again, let's see here. Multiple work sites. Oh, this one doesn't have an H2A one on it. That's interesting. Maybe I'm missing it. But they want you to have 12 months of experience. Why? Why do you need 12 months of experience to do this job? It's painting. This is not, none of this stuff is rocket science. You can train people to do these jobs, and we should expect employers to train them. I think way too many people are just soft on these issues. They hear these employers bitch and moan about how they can't find American workers at the low wages they want to pay and how we don't have the skills. And then you find out, oh, you run a painting business, so you can't train people how to paint? I've painted rooms in my home. Every house I've lived in, I painted stuff. You can't take a normal, everyday person who's never painted, let's say, and train them how to paint? It's not that complicated. What is the issue here? This is why I just keep wondering what is going on and why do we have such low expectations that we think this is an okay behavior? I don't understand it. It's very puzzling to me. And I think that we should shut all this stuff down and force employers to no more foreigners, no more temporary visa programs. You need to pay whatever the market rate is to attract workers. And it's not my concern if you're not able to do it. That's a you problem, not a me problem. And that's also my message to Carson Jorgensen, because he thinks that he should be able to import unlimited numbers of cheap labor to fill his sheep farm instead of hiring Americans. And then when you say something, he'll be like, oh, you say dumb things, Goud. And I keep thinking, I'm like, I say dumb things? You're an America hater and you're a bad businessman. Like, follow the rules that everyone else has to follow. I mean, I have a business. When I hire people, I don't pay them substandard wages like that. I pay them normal wages. Okay, next. Let's go to election issues. So anyway, on that, before we go there, though, I do want to say, I think we need a complete reworking of our immigration system. We actually need a good 100-year moratorium on any new immigrants into the country, as well as a cancellation of all temporary worker visa programs, all of them. I don't want any of them. H2A, H1B needs to go. And then the H4A, I think it is, that they give the spouses needs to go. Actually, Trump could cancel that today. For some reason, his administration won't do it because that is not a congressionally created visa. That's a administratively created visa. They should also get rid of the OPT program. That was expanded under the first Bush administration. It used to only be a 1-year visa program. And then Microsoft went and they lobbied Secretary of Homeland Security Chertoff to expand it to 3 years, turning it into another H-1B program. They should end the OPT program. So if you want to come here and study, you need to go home. And I know Trump's always talking about this. We need to attach a green card on the diplomas. Like, no, not interested. If you want to come here and study, okay, but you need to go home when you're done. We don't want you here. Go fix your home country. Go make it beautiful and develop it. It's okay to have people leave because honestly, I don't even know what skills they got. I feel a lot of them actually probably learned a lot of genders that they didn't know about before they got here, and we don't need any more of that. And then we need to get rid of the H-2A program and stop listening to these farmers who bitch and moan about how they can't find Americans with cheap enough labor, who want to work for the low wages they want to pay. My answer is this. either pay market wages, so you have to keep increasing your wages until Americans want to come and do things like pick your tomatoes or herd your sheep. People will do it if you pay the right salary. And if that's not working, you need to mechanize. That's the key to this. We're not required to allow you to constantly import foreigners, change our culture, change our country because you don't know how to properly run a business. That's not us, all of us problem. That's a you problem. So fix the problem. Learn how to run a business. Okay, so now I have some election news updates for you. The first one is that Lieutenant Governor Henderson actually refiled her petition to designate Michael Clara, me, and 2 others as vexatious requesters. And so I think I've been thinking about this and having some discussions with Michael and others. You know, I have discussions with people about all sorts of stuff, and we talk about this, but having some discussions and thinking about it and realizing that I think what's going on here is they are desperate to destroy all of the documents from the 2024 election. Oh, defined vexatious. Okay, hold on. Let me pull it up. Give me a second. I'll pull up the statute for you guys. I just saw Mr. Producer's like, define vexatious. Okay, I'll pull it up so you guys can see. So this was a law that the legislature passed, I think in 24, and then it went into effect in the 25 session, maybe. And so let's go down here. Okay, so basically a vexatious requester is someone who is making too many requests and the government thinks they are spending too many resources trying to fulfill your requests. And so here are the factors. They look at the number of requests the respondent has submitted to the governmental entity, including the number of pending record requests, the scope, nature, content, language, and subject matter of record requests that the respondent has submitted to the governmental entity, the nature, content, language, and subject matter of any communications to the governmental entity recorded to a record request of the respondent, and any pattern of conduct that the director determines to constitute an abuse of the right to access to information in this chapter or substantial interference with the operations of the government entity and any other factor the director considers relevant. Essentially, the purpose of this is to allow them to shut off your ability to make additional grandma requests. And so our legislature, like any Republican-run thing, is essentially run for donors. And their biggest problem is they don't like that we have access to information. That's what this is about. And so they, in the 24 election, as I've talked about before, Lieutenant Governor Henderson, a pathological liar, and her staff, so it's Ryan Cowley, it's most of the staff that's in that office, as well as Governor Cox, they knew that they did not collect 28,000 signatures that they needed to be placed on the Republican primary ballot. In Utah, there's 2 paths to it. You can get at least 40% of the vote at the convention from delegates, and you'll get on the primary ballot. They did not get that. They got 32.5% or 31%, something like that. And then the other path is to collect at least 28,000 signatures from registered Republicans in the state. They did not collect that many signatures that were legitimate. They actually turned in thousands of forgeries. We don't even know the full scope yet, but they still put themselves onto that 2024 primary ballot. Now, this law was passed to shut off grandma requests. And so what happened, just to put this a little bit more here, is multiple people started making grandma requests about the 2024 signature gathering because it's been confirmed. They cheated. They didn't have the signatures and they still put themselves on the ballot. But we still don't know. There still has not been full transparency about what happened. And I think people were entitled to that transparency. And they have been fighting it every single step of the way. And actually, the government entities themselves, because of the concealment of records that have happened, they have caused more grandma requests to be filed because they are desperate to hide the information from the public. And I'll just give you an example. In 2024, Michael Clara requested a copy of AG 24-170. It was a report that an investigation that he learned about from people who were questioned in it. So a special agent went around. I've talked about this before, but she went around in Vineyard, Utah. She talked to victims whose names were forged on signature petitions for Governor Cox. And one of them gave Michael Clare a copy of a business card, and the business card had the name of a special agent. Her name's Mikkel Jordan. And then the case number 24-170 written on it. Michael Clare made grandma requests to the Attorney General's office asking for all of the records related to this investigation. He mentioned on the first appeal, the chief administrative officer within that agency, he mentioned AG 24-170 and Special Agent Mikkel Jordan. His request was denied that they had no responsive records. It went, he appealed it to our state records, or he appealed to the State Records Committee at the time. And the Secretary of the State Records Committee, Rebecca Shaw, denied his request for an appeal, even though in his appeal he said, I'm going to bring witnesses that will testify that these documents exist because they were actually questioned by a special agent, and she told them it was AG 24-170. Rebecca Shaw denied it because she's, again, a liar. And she said that he had presented no evidence that these records exist. And she said that the whoever the presiding chair was had denied the request for a hearing. There was no chair at the time. So again, she was lying about that. And then it went to district court. At district court, when Michael filed his case, because he appealed that decision, the Attorney General's office filed a motion for summary judgment. They ended up filing an amended one too. They got judgment because Michael at that point was like, I have nothing else I can do here. I don't know what I can do to get the information. So then the court entered judgment against him. Just as a aside here, GRAMA is the Government Records Access and Management Act. So it's like Utah's version of FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. So the court enters judgment against Mr. Clara, Michael Clara. When he goes, then after that, like a couple months after that, a whistleblower comes forward and provides Michael with a copy of the report, this offense report for AG 24-170, and it's essentially unredacted. And at that point, Michael Clara now has proof that they were lying the entire time about the existence of this investigation. After he gets that, a third party files for a different report that they had learned about AG 24-320, and the Attorney General's office actually produces it because now that they can't deny it anymore, now that the whistleblower report came out, but they produced it heavily redacted. So you'd have to have extra knowledge. Like Michael has deep knowledge about what happened, so he's able to fill in the details. But if you're just an average person, you'd have trouble, I think, understanding what is behind the redactions. So, but all of that to say, there have been a number of GRAMA requests that have happened, but the GRAMA requests are a result of the cheating that was engaged in by the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Attorney General's office. All of these people that have been involved in this were actually promoted into higher positions because that's how gross Utah's government is. It's corrupt to the core. And so, Mr. Producer says, so the state shuts off your ability to request records by designating you vexatious. The state did that to Mark Allen, who ran for House District 59. Exactly. This is an abuse. What the Lieutenant Governor is doing right now is totally abusive. I don't think that's the purpose of this law. This law was aimed at like someone goes into jail and then they're constantly making GRAMA requests and they're flooding the system, and they're meritless. The ones that they're tagging have merit. They're getting at real wrong wrongs that happened within the lieutenant governor's office and the attorney general's office, both of them. I mean, I would say a lot of what happened was actually criminal, but because the criminal prosecutions will be determined by the attorney general and he's corrupt, they'll never happen. Now, they want to shut off, I think, all of our ability to make any more grandma requests because they want to destroy the documents. The documents right now, a lot of them are kind of on a litigation hold because we've requested them, there's ongoing litigation. And so they're hoping that if they classify us as vexatious requesters and they only want us classified as that for the 2024 signature gathering effort, then they can say, okay, you no longer can make requests and we can destroy all of these documents. That's their goal. It's criminal from top to bottom. The other piece is that they have to combine us all together because individually we don't actually meet the requirements because there's not really a volume that you need there. And so that is what this is all about. It's just more corruption. It's more of the corruption you see in Utah. I wish more people would stand up against this and stop electing people that support this kind of stuff. I mean, there was a legislator I heard about who's talking about how they want to help, but they don't want anyone to know who they're helping. And I'm like, why are you in the legislature at all? Like, get out. You guys are all useless, weak, useless, pathetic losers, really. And they'll be like, well, I won election for what? What was the purpose of you getting into office if you can't even protect the elections? That should be the number one, right? It's like whatever those the results are, everybody should have to follow the same rules. We don't have that system in Utah. All we have is constant corruption, constant favoritism for people that they want in power. That's how Celeste Malloy got there. She wasn't a resident of Utah when she registered to run, but Lieutenant Governor Henderson let it pass through because, they're scissor sisters or something. And she wanted Celeste. Nobody knew who Celeste was, but Lieutenant Governor Henderson knew who she was, wanted her in office. And I mean, she's probably delivered exactly what Deidre wants and the kind of establishment of the state. But you can kind of see why this is a problem. With the vexatious requester petition, they're actually punishing people who exposed the fraud and then got the legislature to change the laws to prevent it from happening again. So to me, I don't think you can classify people like that as vexatious. These were merited. They led to a legislative change in law because of what they exposed. And now you're going to turn around and say it's vexatious? This woman at the lieutenant governor's office, Maddie Topik, she should be ashamed of herself. I'm kind of wondering how much money she makes. Let me look. I mean, she looks like she's in the Addams family. She's horrid looking, but poor thing. Let's see, Maddie Topik. You can find this out in Transparent Utah. So let's see how much my tax dollars has to go to this loser. Oh, so she makes like $87,000 a year as a comp package to do this stuff. Embarrassing. Okay. Bad all around. I'm not into this. Okay, so then the next piece is this. So we'll deal with it. I think there's a lot of questions that come up with this, and whether this should even be happening right now is one of them. But while that is happening, I also want to talk about this. I thought this was kind of interesting. So I was drafting something, and then I was looking at some of the documents we have. I don't remember if we talked about this before, but I want to take you guys to one of the offense reports. This is the one that Michael Clara was given by the whistleblower. And so let me show you this. There's a couple of things I want to walk you through because this will explain how the process works and why they were able to. Is this the one? Let me make sure. Okay, so here we go. So this explains to you how the process works. So Tanner Leatham is the owner of Gathering Inc. And Gathering Inc. is the signature gathering company that a lot of the elected Republicans in Utah use to get signatures. Even though They have submitted thousands of forged signatures. Celeste Malloy used them this cycle. So they're rewarding this guy for the criminality that he basically allowed to happen. So in this report, Tanner talks about how the business model works. He says here that he is the governor candidate as an example. So they need 28,000 valid signatures from individuals who are registered voters for that party. So if you're a Republican candidate, you have to collect 28,000 signatures to get onto the GOP primary ballot. So that is where Tanner's business comes into play, as they typically hire independent contractors to go out and obtain signatures. Now, I don't know if the people he hires are really independent contractors, because he directs them about where to collect signatures, so the location, and he also talks to them about, he gives them like a program. We'll hear about this in a minute, and the program, I think, tells them where to go to be able to collect signatures. So it strikes me as a little bit more than just an independent contractor type situation. It's not so simple as to say whether he is one or not. There's factors you would look at to see if someone's an independent contractor or if they're an employee. So he has them go through basic online training. The training tells them how to legally gather signatures and how to educate the public about signature gathering. Gather then provides them with tools to find registered voters, which then involves going door to door to obtain signatures. Mr. Producer wants me to let you know that there are different signature thresholds depending on the office you're running for. So governor, statewide offices are 28,000. Let me think here. Your congressional races, I think, are 9,000, maybe 7,500, 9,000, and they go down depending on how big your district is. So Tanner said that he purchases a list of registered voters for the state of Utah from L2, that's a company, who directly purchases that list from the state of Utah. Once the list of registered voters has been purchased, Tanner then has it uploaded into a software application called Votive. Votive allows the circulator to check off names once they have received a signature. Tanner said Votive also provides geolocation when a pin is checked off as well. The workers are then split up geographically, which is typically based on where they reside. Tanner said he typically has 4 to 5 managers who are assigned to these areas. The workers respond directly to their assigned manager. Tanner said there was a chance the geolocation data could still be stored through Votive, but he would have to check with his employee that deals directly with this area. And then they print out packets for the circulators to pick up. These are the people he had. He was hired by Spencer Cox, Brad Wilson, Garrett Cammons, and Don Ibsen. Okay, now let me turn this off for a minute. And then I'm going to go down to the next page, I think. Okay, here. Mr. Producer says you can purchase the entire voter registration database from L2, or if you're a Democrat, the party gives them to you. Democrats are actually good at a lot of stuff. So for all the criticism. Okay, so here you go. Now, first I want to say this. I'm not taking these guys' names out because they were all criminally prosecuted, so I'm not redacting them. So during this interview, I think this is where it gets really interesting. So this section of the report produced by the Attorney General's office was redacted, this part of his interview. So hold on, so you're looking at this, you see this, we're on page 142 right here. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, just because I wanna make sure I'm showing you the right thing. Here. Okay, and then this is what it looks like on what the Attorney General's office eventually produced. See that, and you can see additional screenshots. Here's your 142 or 389 is the Bates number, and you can kind of see they've redacted this. Okay, and so so there you go. Well, this one says 280, but it's 142. It's the same one. Oh, that the numbers are different because this is the whistleblower one, and the other one was produced through the actual from the Attorney General directly. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. During this interview, Tanner brought up the fact that his validity rate down in Washington County was way lower than normal. Tanner said he usually plans on a 15% buffer, as typically only about 15% of signatures are bad. Now, I want to say they could be bad as in maybe the person doesn't live in the district, the person's signature doesn't match. There's different things that could be wrong that doesn't necessarily mean it was forged. Okay. The main one would be they live outside the district. So when we did Axe the Tax, we had some people sign the petitions even if they didn't live in Salt Lake County. So, that happens when you're gathering signatures. That's just the nature of it. Okay, so he said, with Washington County, Tanner felt good about Don Ipsen's packets as they had obtained a 30% buffer. However, Tanner found out 2 hours before the deadline, Don Ipsen was missing somewhere between 70 and 130 signatures. With the packets having been flagged for forgeries, Gather was not allowed to try and obtain the remaining signatures for Don Ipsen's packets. Okay, so he says in Don Ipsen's case, they had a 30% buffer. So whatever the requirement was plus 30%. And that the signatures were so bad that 30% was not sufficient. Why do you think the Attorney General's office redacted this part of the interview when they produced this report themselves? Okay, ask yourself that question. And I'll explain why I think it is in a minute. So he said, so Tanner said a group of college kids with a little quote, quote, little network wanted to do signature gathering. That is when Alex, Burt, Colton Drake, Rocco Huntsman, and Joseph Wild became employees for Gather. Man, Rocco, that's a cool name. I always thought it was my name, Rocco. The following are the hiring dates for these individuals. So he hired them in January 24. Tanner said he was in communication with Colton Drake as Tanner told Colton he needed to write an apology letter to Don Ipsen. Tanner was able to find the message on his cell phone and allowed me to read the text message. The message stated the following: Dear M. Don L. Ipsen, my name is Colton. I got a call this morning about what's going on. I feel awful. I put in so much work for your campaign and messed up. I made the mistake of asking for people to sign for their spouse, which was as high as 40% of my signatures. Oh, I had no clue it would lead to this. I feel super terrible. I'm so sorry. Sincerely, Colton Drake. Tanner took a screenshot of this text message thread and had Craig upload it to the Dropbox file. And then Craig is the lawyer. See the attached message for further information. Okay. So 30%. That's your magic number here. So then this interview happens. Let me see. Hold on. This interview happens on August 6th of 2024. So this would have been after the primary, this is before the general election. So at this point, the Attorney General's office has a sense that 30% of the signatures on Don Ipsen's were bad. That's a very high rate. And in Don Ipsen's case, I've seen some of the petitions. It was forgeries. It was very obvious. It was just name, address, signature after voter, after voter, after voter, all in the same handwriting, all obviously forged. And that's how this happened. So if you extrapolate from that 30% and you look at Governor Cox's signatures, right? According to the auditor's report, Governor Cox turned in 32,883 signatures in the 24 election. So if 30% of his signatures were forged or invalid, you can have either one. He only had 23,018 valid signatures. He was thousands of signatures under the 28,000 required. And this is important because you see, we actually still to this day don't know the exact number of invalid or forged signatures that were submitted by Governor Cox. To this day, And they don't want us to know. And that's why they're trying to destroy the documents, because Lieutenant Governor Henderson has ambitions to become the next governor of Utah. She probably will become it because Utah has a habit of taking lieutenant governors and making them the governor. Plus, she's a woman. I hate to say it, but I think Utah has this weird culture where they treat women, they hold women to a lower standard than men. And you see that. I think that's true. Yeah, I think they're easier on women. And then also, she's just going to cheat her way into the governor's office because the party did nothing when she cheated to keep Governor Cox in office. In fact, the party was fine with it. All the leadership of the Republican Party knows that Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson are not legitimately in power anymore, that they cheated and they had to cheat to be able to stay in power. They all know that. They're not stupid. And they didn't fight it because I think they could have been successful had they fought it. So rather than do that, they kept these people in power, and we have what we have today. But just think about that. Like, we should know exactly how many signatures were invalid or forged on Governor Cox's petitions. Okay, like we should be able to see that. Now, what the Lieutenant Governor's office has done is they have been protecting those signature petitions, even though I don't think the law allows it. I think they're using privacy protections intended for you and me, regular voters, to protect forgeries. And I don't think the law was intended to do that. The law should actually allow the disclosure of all forged signatures, because if you do that, there's a couple things that need to happen. One, the public needs to know that, so that we can assess if you've taken appropriate action. Two, the individuals who are the victims of the forgeries need to be informed that that happened to them. And in this case, the only ones that know that they were the victims of forgeries were the ones who were interviewed. There are thousands of people in Utah right now where these signature gatherers took their information on voter. So sorry, let me just make it really, really clear. This is how the forgeries happen. The signature gatherers, they look in votive. That's the system that Tanner Latham has, where he's uploading the voter list. They find your name, they write your name. Instead of going door to door like they're supposed to, they go sit down, they take the petitions. They all have horrible handwriting, by the way. And I mean, I shouldn't criticize because my handwriting is pretty bad too, but if you're going to forge, you should at least do it neatly. And they look in votive, they find your name, they write your name down, they write your address down, they just make up a signature and they sign it. And they do that for thousands of people. And so that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. And so those people whose information was taken out of a computer system and misused like that, they have never been informed of what happened, never been told protect yourself. Because I don't know, did the signature gatherers make copies of those petitions and use it for some other purpose, like stealing their identities, applying for credit cards in their names, doing anything else? We don't know the answer to that. And I don't think the gathering has had to do an investigation to figure out all of the things that happened and to notify people about the fact that their signatures were forged on these petitions. And I think the Lieutenant Governor Henderson doesn't want them to, because then we'd be able to figure out how many signatures were forged on petitions of 2024. Mr. Producer said, do the gatherers get paid per signatures? They do. So hold on, I will actually show you guys this here. So in his interview, Tanner Latham says, so Tanner advised he pays his independent contractors for each valid signature. Tanner said he pays each worker 70% upfront and then makes up the rest once the signatures have been validated. If circulator's validation rate is under 59%, Tanner then said he tells that circulator they need to pay him back the difference. Excuse me. Tanner said on average his validity rate is roughly 85%, but that's not true with Washington County, as we just read. As Tanner was explaining this to Special Agent Nold and myself, we pulled up one of the employer's contracts and read it over. The contract specified the following for compensation. So they're paid per valid signature. It's $3.50 per valid signature collected in a single. So just so you understand, typically these signature gatherers will go and they'll have more than one candidate's petition, right? So for the first signature, you get $3.50, $2.50 per valid signature collected in double. So if you have 2 signature packets with you, you get paid $5 for each signature. Like the same person signing 2, you get $5 total. Then if you do it in triple, you get $2.25 per signature. I guess quadruple, you get 2, and then quintuple, $1.75. Let's see. Then there was another part of this because he talks about based off. Okay. Okay. So then I'll read you this part too because I thought this was interesting. So Tanner said once all of the signatures have been gathered for a specific candidate, they then turn those packets into the appropriate office. This is either the county clerk's office or the state office. So for Utah, if you're a statewide candidate, you're going to go to Davis County Clerk for whatever reason. That is all dependent on what spot the candidate is running for. Each signature is then verified to ensure it is a legitimate signature and not a forgery. I asked Tanner if he and or the company ever looks at the packets before sending them off. Tanner said they don't inspect the packets for a valid signature. However, they do inspect them for cosmetic reasons and to make sure the circulator is on the back page. Tanner said they don't have a way to compare any of the signatures, so they leave that up to the respective agencies. Tanner said they will try to inspect them to see if there is a pattern of the same handwriting throughout the packet, as that typically indicates criminal activity has taken place. Tanner said they have caught that a couple of times in his 9 years. Ultimately, though, Tanner said he doesn't know if the signature is valid or not. So Tanner said his training, this is the best part. Tanner said his training videos emphasize honesty, integrity, and explain the independent contractor will be turned into law enforcement if they are caught doing anything illegal. Tanner went on to say in his contract each worker signs, it states around 3 or 4 times about obeying the laws and being honest. Gather's business model is honesty and integrity, according to Tanner. They've had issues multiple cycles, the gathering. So here's the thing. He says we look at the petitions to see if it's the same handwriting. Okay, but there were thousands of signatures turned over the same handwriting. They didn't look at them. Or our Attorney General's office gave him a pass because he has connections. That's the other option here. And so that's what I would tell people is like, I just think here, maybe the signature gathering process is the problem in and of itself. And I do think there's issues with that. It could also be that we have a lot of corruption in the state. And you see that in this investigation where this guy claims that he's out there looking, at least glancing at the packets, and it's very clear he didn't do that because I've seen some of the packets and the fraud is obvious. It was obviously forged. So either he looked at them and thought, okay, we'll just pass it because we've been doing this before. That's what I suspect was going on. I think this has been happening every cycle. Or he just didn't really do this quality check, which he should be liable for that. They didn't criminally prosecute him and they should have. And he should at least be set. I mean, honestly, I think he should be civilly held liable for what he did. I don't think he ever will be, but I just think that's really interesting. So that should give you a sense of how this works and how the process worked. The other interesting part about this is that when they caught the issues with Don Ibsen's signatures at the Washington County Clerk, they would not let them go and collect more signatures to make up for the shortfall. But then I hear people saying things like, oh, well, if Governor Cox, he could have collected more signatures if he would have known that he had all these forgeries. And it's like, no, that's the whole point. Like, according to what that guy was saying, once they flag the packets as being forged, you actually are not going to be able to get another opportunity to collect more. You shouldn't. You broke the law. There have to be actual ramifications for this, or we'll just keep on having the same problem happen over and over again. And I suspect in 28, we'll actually end up with probably massive cheating because, like I said, Deidre is desperate to be the governor of the state. She's a pathological liar, but I think probably her husband doesn't like her, so she wants to be governor, so she doesn't spend time with him. Poor guy. At least I assume he doesn't like. Here's what I assume: if you're a pathological liar, as she is, and I've talked about the multiple examples of her lying, I assume she's also like that with her husband and with their family. And with their kids, obviously, there's nothing they can do because that's their mom. But when you're married to someone you're like that, your spouse is going to be like, no. I know you're a pathological liar. I'm not interested. Go somewhere else. No thanks. Okay. Now, we're almost at time. So next week, I want to talk. Well, maybe it might not be next week, to be honest with you. It might be the week after. Because I think next week I may not be able to be here. But the next time we're on, I actually want to talk about the resurrection of the Me Too movement. I think it's back. And I actually think, so the Graham Plattner, what happened with Graham Plattner in Maine is a good example of it, but we had it happen here in Utah as well. And I think it's being used by the establishment to knock out kind of these unpredictable populist candidates. And it happens on both sides. It's not just a Democrat thing. And I think we should talk about it because I think when you hear somebody claim sexual assault, you need to actually ask questions and really kind of dive into it. Just as an example, I looked at that Graham Plattner case. You know, he's like having this casual relationship with this woman. She says she needs a glute massage. She goes over, they do the deed. And then, you know, she sleeps over. The next day they spend time together. And then like 2 months later, she says it was not consensual after she finds out she's not pregnant. And I'm just not really sure that fits the bill of what I would consider to be sexual assault or rape, especially when they have a 20-year statute of limitations in Maine. So she could file that complaint now. And I think the distinction that we all need to make is if it is he said, she said, I'm not going to assume that one person is telling the truth and the other's not. And I'm definitely not going to assume it if you're making the accusations, because I think people are innocent until proven guilty. And I have no way of judging you as your character, judging you as a witness, judging your statements. So I'm just going to assume that the guy's innocent, because also some of the stories just sound a little bit ridiculous. So, so we'll talk about that because there's examples here. Like I think the Eva Chavez Lopez case where, you know, she's the lesbian that was in, or maybe bisexual, something like that, that was on the Salt Lake City Council and then ran for Congress. And then 4 women, all political, came out with these claims and they just knocked her out. They totally knocked that poor thing out. And, you know, I'm not saying she's the greatest person in the world or anything, but she was, here's the thing. She was a little bit more of a moderate Democrat. So they just like knocked her out. I think they did this for Ben McAdams. And I don't know that we should believe any of those women. Because if you just look at it a little bit, you know, one of the claims is that Victoria Petro, who's on the Salt Lake City Council, saying, oh, she came up to me at a party where they were probably drinking. And she pushed me against a wall and said, you know, the only reason I F with men is because I haven't found a woman to satisfy me. And then Victoria Petro says she felt threatened. And I'm like, someone pointed out to me, Victoria Petro is larger than Eva Chavez Lopez. Like if she wanted to move Eva, she could have just pushed her aside. So, you know, the idea that Victoria felt so threatened, it was so horrible. Like, come on. And we should be looking at all of these with skepticism, especially when people bring them up for political reasons. Like so you didn't want to make this claim until the person has this viable candidacy to become the senator of Maine, a House or a congressional representative of Utah. Then suddenly you want to bring it up to the general public, but you don't want to take it to the police. No. Just you want the public to be the ones to litigate it. That's not how we should. That's not how America should work generally. There was another one, and then even when you hear these ones about like you'll hear there's another. I think I remember reading about the BYU football, the quarterback, right? The woman claims that he sexually assaulted her or raped her. I can't remember which one. And then you read the story and you're like, okay, she went to his house and then she went into his bedroom to watch a movie with him. And I'm just like, is that like, what? So like you go into someone's bedroom to watch a movie with them. And then what did you think, what am I supposed to believe was going to happen there? What was the purpose of that? And maybe you just have regret. And did that woman file a rape claim against him? Is there a criminal case anywhere? I don't know. Now, he would have gotten kicked out of BYU anyway because he broke their rules, right? So that's like a different issue. But, you know, like, I think we should have more skepticism about this because there's a process, an appropriate process to deal with sexual assault and rape claims, and that is the criminal process. And if you're not willing to go and use that, I don't know why I'm supposed to sit here and judge someone based on allegations that I have no way of really being able to dive into, dig through, and figure out if they're true. Yeah, and Mr. Producer says the court of public opinion. Exactly, which is useless. Okay, I think that's all I had. So let's see, we got a minute. Oh, I have one other thing. I'll just play this video real quick, and then I thought this was, although I think this video might be too long. Let me look. We have, oh, actually we're at time. Okay, well, we're at time. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening to the Goud Crowd. I'm your host, Goud. We're on every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. Like I said, I don't think I'll be here next Monday, but we'll be here the Monday after. Hopefully, I'll try to have Back Home with Brandy back on. And you can catch us on X, on YouTube, on Rumble, at X on my handle at Goud, the number 4 Utah, and then at X and at all the other sites for Main Street Media Utah. Thanks a lot. We will see you next time.